Tonight on Real News from the Blaze, we have a small window into what a second Obama term might look like. On the agenda, immigration reform. Buck, could we see this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some conflicting indicators, though, about what a second-term President Obama would do on the issue of immigration. So we're going to take a look at what's happened so far to try to get a sense of what could happen under Obama term 2.
All that and much more on Real News from the Blaze coming up in just 60 minutes.
This is not going to be about politics. This is about principles. We're going to take it upon ourselves to be part of the solution.
We are going to restore history, restore our honor, restore his idea that character is what matters.
Let us not lose this battle because we sat down.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Hello, America. 'Twas the night before the bake sale, and all through the house I could smell the cookies baking. Oh, and nothing else. Tomorrow is the bake sale. Tomorrow is a day that, I don't know if I told you this. So far, in just a week, you have raised about 1 million meals for the homeless. In about a week, just this audience. Thank you. And tomorrow and all through the weekend, we're asking people to do a bake sale and lemonade stand and help us feed the homeless and change the world. We got an Oval Office for you. I don't know if we're going to get to it tonight. May just put it on the internet, but it's an important one that you share with your friends. Did I welcome you to the Glenn Beck program and to GBTV? Okay, I just did. Now, around the globe and here at home, we're seeing a century-long battle come to head. Big government spending versus small government and individual responsibility. For decades, politicians have been too spineless, too cowardly to put a stop to all the spending that we have. But here's the one thing I want you to remember tonight. No matter how many progressives or socialists or leftists or radical revolutionaries try to convince you, austerity is not a dirty word. Common sense, coupled with spending cuts and lower taxes, freeing people up from oppressive taxes, is not a bad thing when coupled with cuts in spending. We'll show you the mounting evidence of some of this stuff tonight, but first, I have a treat for you. The economic stylings of the incomparable Paul Krugman. Here he is, the only man in America smart enough to make sense of Obama's "the private sector is doing fine" comment. Us mere mortals don't have enough brain bandwidth to process deep thinking thoughts like this one, but thankfully, Sir Krugman does. Watch.
The truth is the private sector is doing better than the public sector, which is not well enough. And actually the real story about this economy is that this cutbacks at the public sector are what's hurting recovery. You know, by this point in Obama's presidency, if we had normal public sector job growth, we'd have around 800,000 more people, firefighters, school teachers, police officers. Instead, we've got 600,000 fewer. So right there is like 1.4 million jobs that we should have had in the public sector. And of course, those would translate into more private sector jobs too. So that's what he was trying to get at. And of course, he screwed up the line.
I'm trying to figure that one out. With a straight face, Mr. I'm so totally genius says the cuts in the public sector are what's slowing the economy down. Okay, for the economy to pick up, we have to be creating something and selling something and then people buying something so all the taxes can be paid all the way along. And of course, the public sector jobs would translate into more private sector jobs? Pardon me, Mr. Krugman, but us simpletons, I gotta ask you, how exactly do the teachers and the firefighters and the police officers create jobs? Can't answer that one because they don't. Doesn't mean that we fire them or we want them out of a job or anything like that. We need teachers, we need firemen, we need police officers. But let's just see how this works. See, this is the fundamental disconnect between thinking people and leftist ideologues that we have in power or at the New York Times. See, there's a split here in America. We see things differently, but they're connected. But here we are. We're living in Tulowville. Everything's too low here. And evil. It's evil, Tulowville. You see, you live here in Tulowville, and you're getting too low of wages because you're working for the evil private sector, that evil private company that produces whatever it is, plant-killing products that are just killing the planet, and you sell them to the evil Walmart that is just selling them to other people in Tulowville just to make their evil profit. And then, of course, they're not paying enough sales tax to the state and local and Fed. And of course, they're not paying enough corporate tax here. And you in Tulowville, because you have too low of wages, aren't paying enough income tax. That's half of the story. But here, in the shiny, happy place where Paul Krugman lives and the president, oh, they do a lot of great things. Oh, they do so many great things. They make everything shiny and happy. And here, where all of the teachers work, it's the work too hard school there. That's happening. Study too much, work too hard. And the police and the firehouse are here with the firemen and the police and the teachers working too hard. And all these guys are doing is just trying to make things shiny and happy. They do a lot of good. They do a lot of great things here. The state and local and federal government, they do. But hiring people isn't one of them. Teachers don't create jobs. Police don't create. We want more police officers. Shouldn't we be trying to build a society where we don't have to have so many police officers? I'm just saying. Progressives shudder at the mere thought of any public cuts, no matter how much common sense they make. If we can't afford it, I'm sorry, we have to cut. The same thing happens over here in Tulowville. The evil corporations. Oh, what we'll do is we'll just erase you. Oh, that's what we'll do. No. They want to create more jobs because it means more money for them. We should be wanting people to create more jobs because it means more money in tax revenue. In North Dakota, one of the ballot items is that we should eliminate the property tax entirely. It makes me, for the very first time in my life, want to live in North Dakota. I mean, sure, South Dakota has all the beaches, but North Dakota's pretty sweet, I hear now. They're in favor of the ban. Non-organized group of frustrated citizens in favor of the ban, but they've been outraised by property tax ban opponents. Now, who's taking their money and saying, I have got to beat this? By the way, they're just being outraised by the narrow margin of $500,000 to $12,000. Really? There are that many people that are like, I have got to write a check to keep that property tax there. Really? Which one do you think is getting outside help? Why are people defending more taxes from the government? Well, you can say you bought into the lie of Tulowville. You could buy that. But wouldn't you also then have to at least recognize that the government has failed almost every step of the way in almost everything they've ever tried? I mean, think about what they're doing. They're fear-mongering over public cuts and saying that we won't be able to meet basic needs. I got news for you. If we don't fix this debt, we won't be able to afford anything. Nearly every single government out there spends more money than it takes in. They put more out than they take in. Every government on the planet, every government in the United States almost. And then they have the cojones to lecture us about making cuts. We've already made cuts in Tulowville. I like more, please. They blame the cuts for the problem. We all know the problem isn't the cuts. There are enough taxes to go around. We got the taxes. We got sales tax, income tax, gas tax, cigarette tax, building permit taxes, hunting permit taxes, fishing license taxes, liquor taxes, luxury taxes, unemployment taxes, capital gains tax, payroll taxes, dog license tax, death tax, tolls, utility taxes. I could go on. You want to talk about fairness? What is fair about getting rich off the backs of hardworking people? robbing them of their bounty with endless taxes, while leaving the state and the city and the country on the brink of financial ruin, where every teacher will lose their job. You spend way more than all of those taxes bring in. That's the problem. Stop spending. And we as people have to stop depending on the government. It's not really hard to see what our future holds. It's grim if we continue to depend on out-of-control governments. They are trying over and over and over again to bail out everything. Bail this out, bail that out, bail this country out, bail Europe out. Look where it's taking Europe. Further in the hole. Spain's $125 billion bailout held for about 10.5 seconds before it quickly became apparent it's not going to accomplish anything except put Spain in a bigger hole. It also turned all the eyes last night towards Italy, the next pig on the list of expected failures. Trouble in Italy. Their stock market has performed the worst on the entire continent, down 2.8%. Italy is considered by many to be the cultural cradle of the world. Take the Trevi Fountain. It was completed in 1762. It's older than our country. Well, see some of this fancy curly-cue crap up here at the top? It's starting to fall down here because Italy doesn't have enough money to maintain it. They can't stop their most prized cultural relics from crumbling to the ground because they can't afford it. Italy's debt woes are only surpassed by Greece and Japan. The cost of borrowing is now rising so rapidly, it's becoming more and more likely that they are going to be completely unable to repay their debt. Default trouble. They don't have the cash for everything that they want to buy. So they'll go the bailout route. And when they fail, who's next? Last night, the next one to step up. After Italy, I read a story about France. France is now reportedly 2 months until France is in the bullseye. 2 months from collapse, which is interesting to me because it mirrors another timeline given by George Soros, who said 3 months Europe has left. 3 months. He said that a month ago. Oh, wait, it's exactly like... Europe is throwing money. Might as well throw it into the Trevi Fountain. At least somebody would be able to wade into that water and get it. The people are once again buying into failed leftist ideology. We've showed you the far left on the rise in various European countries. It's getting worse in Greece, not better. And now, let me show you France. They just elected a socialist president. But even more troublesome is how the Socialist Party is about to gain a majority of seats in France's National Assembly after a strong performance on the first round of parliamentary elections. Their first promise is to roll back the austerity cuts and fire up the government printing press again. We can do it. Greece was going to do that. They were going to spend and borrow. See, they can't print. We can. They can't. But they're going down. Greece. Spain tried spending and borrowing in the green economy, and they're going down. Italy is about to try it, and it won't work for them either. They're about to go down. And in 2 months, according to experts, France will go down too. The EU bailout fund is not an endless money tree. Yet they keep shunning spending cuts and keep embracing more bailouts. It's just the next dollar. It's the next dollar. My gosh, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I know that. It's the next drink. It's the next job that's going to make me happy. They're alcoholics. They're out of control. And they refuse to let go of the handouts. It's insanity. A few years ago, I showed you this. I showed you the Kondraciev wave. Prosperity, recession, depression, improvement. It was named after this guy. You might not recognize him in this picture. He was asked by Stalin, which is better, communism or capitalism? And he said, let me think about it for a while. And so I don't recognize him in this picture because what I've seen, he has a little hole right here. But anyway, he said this is the way the economy works. And it's true. How a capitalist economy works. There are long waves, long stretches of growth. Sometimes they last decades, sometimes downtimes last decades as well, but it's cyclical. It's an ongoing struggle. It is prosperity, recession, depression, improvement. It's that. And it's natural. You can understand this wave. This is springtime, where it's starting green shoots. This is summer. It's never going to get worse than this. This is fall. Uh-oh, things look like it's getting a little colder. And this is winter. This is depression. And you think it's never going to end, but then green shoots, and it's springtime again. Come on, it's natural. Progressives try to stop anything. They try to stop winter from ever happening. And they do it with, good sounding but fruitless government regulations. The rest of us prefer emphasizing preparedness to weather the winter. We are making strides. We are making strides. Really good strides. I think we're about to win. I can't believe it. I mean, I'm surprised. I didn't say that out loud, did I? I mean, of course we're about to win. That was the plan the whole time. Anyway, there are 4 hopeful signs that I want to give you tonight that common sense and regular people are showing that they have the cowards surrounded. 1, Wisconsin last week. I mean, was that sign of great hope? I mean, not because Walker won, but because of how he won. Conservatives and Tea Party small government people out-organized the powerful unions on the ground. I mean, there were 4 ways to give you hope today. I didn't think that this would ever happen. And I mean, look at it. 35% of the union members in a new poll support Romney. The unions have become too radical for even their own membership. There's hope number 1. Hope number 2. At the same time that they were voting in Wisconsin, voters in California, and let me repeat, overwhelmingly approved what the left would describe as austerity cuts. About 70% of the people in San Jose favored reducing skyrocketing pension benefits for city workers. 66% of those crazy wackos in San Diego, they supported the similar measure. All right. Hopeful sign number 3, North Dakota property tax ban. It's probably going to lose, but there's hope that people are saying, wait a minute. Why are we doing this? And people are standing up. And they're not the only state considering a similar measure. This one is really the point of hope for point number 3. It's not North Dakota. The other measure that's being considered is in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania reportedly preparing bills to address this same issue. And the last point of hope, number 4, tonight, I think, is Art Laffer. Last night I had him on, and Art's a pretty straight shooter. He's an optimist, but he's a straight shooter, and he's been there before. He's seen this movie before. And we talked last night, and he said, it's like the 70s, like all over again, Glenn. We're in the summer before Ronald Reagan. We're on the verge of losing our generation's Jimmy Carter. Watch. Doesn't this feel like the summer that Reagan was elected?
Yes, sir, it does. I've been to this barbecue before. Back then, I didn't know what it was.
Right.
But it's perfect, Glenn.
Right.
You saw what happened in Wisconsin. You saw what happened in California in the elections there. They couldn't even pass a cigarette tax. Right. My goodness, how bad things must be for these people.
And
we're going to win in a landslide.
Ronald Reagan was losing at this point. Mitt Romney is ahead. Ronald Reagan was losing at this point.
I know, and then we win in a landslide.
Yeah. Nice. That's sad, isn't it? All right. So what do we have to do? We have to weather for the storm. And we have to batten down the hatches because Europe is going to come undone. But the good news is more and more Americans are hanging on to each other. And what we're going to do tomorrow with raising... Do you realize what you've done? 1 million meals for the homeless. That's incredible. That's incredible. In 1 week. This is all building up to restoring love. Can you imagine what you'll accomplish in another 6 or 8 weeks? Prepare for the storm. Prepare for the propaganda assault by the progressives who try to blame everything on capitalism. You need to start talking to your friends about Europe right now. Because at some point they're going to say, hey, you know what? I believe Bill was talking about this. He was talking about Europe a long time ago. Do it. Tell them about Europe. Prepare so you have some credibility when it happens. And also study up on capitalism. The problem is that every time we hit a downturn, they grab for more of our kids. And they are getting close to grabbing them all. 43% of young hipsters aged 18 to 29 give the word socialism a positive reaction. Really? Now that's the identical number for capitalism. Only 25% of people my age give socialism a positive reaction, but half of the generation below. One college professor celebrated this trend, saying, quote, young people cannot be characterized as capitalist generation. They are half capitalist and half socialist. Since the socialist leaning keeps rising among the young, it suggests that we're moving toward an America that is either center-left or actually majoritarian socialist. Trouble. Through culture, through television, through movies, through music. They're not watching the news. They're watching comedy shows. Relentless indoctrination at the schools. The changing of our history books. Our youth are subject to a near constant sales pitch for socialism. Even student textbooks are being rewritten to fit the agenda. I've got some upstairs in the library that will blow your mind. I've got to show them to you. Blow your mind. New, brand new history textbooks. You don't have to go back and see what they were writing about the 1800s. See what they were writing about 3 years ago. You won't believe it. An economics professor was shocked to find errors such as these in economic textbook. Despite fears by some Americans that governmental tampering with the free enterprise system would be harmful, most government policies have met with success. Really? How about this one? As societies become more complex, the need for government power tends to increase. Look what happens to a student's view when they go into college. When they enter college, about the same amount of liberal versus conservatives, right? A little heavier on conservative. After college, watch this. Liberal is now 39%, up 10 points. Conservative is now 23%, down 7. Before college, 67.2% of students say they hope they someday will achieve financial success. But after, that number drops. No, that's wrong. It's 59% at the bottom and 67% before college. That's amazing. The student's goal of owning a successful business also drops after attending college. The good news is that we have the winning argument. We just have to know how to make the winning argument. That's why I want you to remember this one thing, because they're all going to say it. They're already saying it over in Europe, but the situation in Europe is farther down the road. Austerity in America is not a dirty word. It's common sense. You cannot spend more than you have. All we have to do is speak up and remind everybody that we surround them. We are right, and we're about to win. This is the most ambitious thing we have ever done, ever. We've done a lot of stuff that people said was crazy, but being in the biggest stadium in the biggest league on the planet is pretty nuts. We built it. Now let's see if people come and just rock the house. I mean, it is. The stuff we're doing has not been done before here, and it's going to be an absolute don't miss, not night, but whole week in Dallas. Make sure you join us.
My brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone.
Oh, that was the scariest darn thing. That was yesterday we filmed that, and I'm like, I know people have bought their tickets already, but are they going to come? Because this is a lot. There's a lot of space. A lot of space there. I want to tell you about our underwriter this half hour. It's tax resolution. If you've run into trouble with the IRS, there's absolutely nothing worse. Okay, well, I mean, Ebola might be a little worse. The flesh-eating virus, that would be a little bit worse. But the IRS is right after that. You don't want to deal with them or Ebola on your own. You need tax experts at taxresolution.com unless you have the Ebola part. Unlike some of the tax help agencies, they're not, stocked with former IRS agents who are trained to consider you the enemy. I mean, come on, Bill, you and I have been in the IRS forever. Let's get rid of this dirtbag. Just cut them some slack. They're knowledgeable. They're trained professionals who want to help and know which side of the table the good guy's sitting on. TaxResolution.com. Call them now. 1-866-IRS-PROBLEMS. 1-866-IRS-PROBLEMS or TaxResolution.com.
Bringing a firearm into your home is one of the most important decisions you can make. If you're considering gun ownership, CheaperThanDirt.com is here to help you make a responsible and informed choice. We understand it is a personal decision how you choose to protect your family. We offer thousands of choices of firearms, ammunition, and accessories to suit your individual needs. Be responsible, be proactive, and exercise your Second Amendment right. Find us online at CheaperThanDirt.com. That's CheaperThanDirt.com.
The establishment has tried and failed to copy the FreedomWorks model. Why? Because they don't understand how freedom works. So while they were sleeping, we were planning our hostile takeover. It's about the politics of we the people. So get a copy of Hostile Takeover and learn how to take back your liberty today. Get your exclusive excerpt before the book goes on sale by going to www.hostiletake.com.
It's an unpredictable world. Disaster can strike at any time. That's why Stove in a Can should always be part of your emergency survival plan. With power out and gas lines down, Stove in a Can cooks your food and rapidly boils water. Portable, safe, and easy to use. With an all-natural waterproof fuel source you can store indefinitely. Say goodbye to dangerous propane, lighter fluid, and gas. Don't wait until it's too late. Stock up today and protect your family. Special bundle offers available at stoveinacan.com.
Is your belt too small? Wish there was an easy way to punch a hole? Well, now you can punch a perfect hole in seconds with Roto-Punch. Wrong belt size? No problem. Just squeeze the handle and Roto-Punch instantly makes the perfect fit. Is your purse strap too long? Fixing it is easy. Just squeeze for a perfect hole in seconds. Punching a hole has never been easier. Just pick a size and punch for an extra hole instantly. But hold everything, we're also including our snap and eyelet attachment free. Now worn out snaps and eyelets can be replaced quickly and easily. We'll even include 75 assorted snaps and eyelets free. Call now to get the Roto-Punch with the snap and eyelet tool, plus 75 assorted eyelets and snaps today for only $10. But wait, order now and get a second Roto-Punch system free. Just pay separate processing and handling. Call now.
To order Roto-Punch for $10 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-919-4516. That's 1-800-919-4516 or order online at rotopunch.com. Call or log on now.
Coming up on Real News, thousands took to the streets of Moscow earlier today in protest of President Vladimir Putin's authoritarian rule. What's the story, Essie?
Well, it's called the March of Millions, and as you say, they've been protesting since Putin was reelected. We're going to find out who these guys are and what they want and talk to someone on the inside over there.
All right, that's up next on Real News from the Blaze right after Glenn at 6 o'clock.
What is the definition of the American dream? Do we even really know? The idea behind America once was just opportunity, freedom, possibility, truth, justice, liberty. Somebody couldn't just scoop you up off the street. We used to be a country that the idea was, because we weren't always this way, but the idea was we would welcome anyone who wanted to come here legally in search of a better life. And we'd have open arms. Now, that didn't always happen. But that's the idea. If you want to make, that's the idea behind the Statue of Liberty. Come here, try it. That's being stripped away and replaced with terms like fairness and equality, which on the surface sound pretty good, don't they? I mean, who doesn't want to be fair? But what they really end up being about is power, control, and greed. What's in it for me? We're losing a sense of who we really are. Did you ever think that you would see a day like today in America, where you would see in city after city the banning of feeding the homeless? It is now happening in Philadelphia. It's happening in Orlando. It's happening in Houston, in Dallas, in Las Vegas, and New York City. Did you ever think that you would see the day where Americans would be stopped from being dreamers? You saw the stats in the last segment. Our young generation of students are losing their desire to be successful. They're being told that it's bad to be successful. It's bad to run a company. They're being told by Van Jones and others that the real American dream is the one dream where everybody has the same stuff. We've been sold a bill of goods that the American dream is to own a home. It's not. That's a nice goal to have, but that's not it. Politicians have screwed up all of it. They forced the banks to reduce lending standards. That caused more defaults because people who couldn't get a loan could suddenly get one. And when trouble hit, they defaulted. The destruction of the housing market was not necessary. It happened because of politicians and that we lost the vision of the American dream. Also, new stats out now, Americans' net worth has dropped a shocking 40% in 3 years. That means you, your neighbor, everybody you know, you have dropped in personal wealth 40%. The American dream is not about stuff. It's not about owning a home. It's not about a car. It's not how much stuff we have. It's not about the iPhone or the next guy or the guy across the street or the Joneses or anybody else. It's about having an opportunity to dream and to innovate, to make your own way. It's about having an idea and bringing it to life. It's about being fat and lazy if you want to be fat and lazy, but not sponging off of everybody else. It's about coming here with nothing but the shirt on your back and making it. You see, that's why people would take an old Chevy and put it in the water and try to float here. That's why people would get into a boat on the other side of the planet and come here. Because we were the only place on the planet who has that. Make your own way and people will leave you alone and they'll be good, will embrace you. Progressives are busy trying to make us like everyone else. In 1939, the American dream was defined by the press this way. The American dream is to come over here in steerage with 10 fingers as baggage, work, and become great. That's it. Notice how they didn't spout off the laundry list of, health care and, things that we could give people for free and equal housing. It didn't happen. By 1984, the American dream had a makeover. A survey of college students revealed that the American dream was now, quote, owning a home that is larger and more expensive than the home in which they grew up. Well, that explains why we have these mammoth homes. You do that for 2 generations, and pretty soon we're all in 400,000 square foot homes, and nobody can afford it. In 2011, at the Progressive Take Back the American Dream conference, the American dream was defined in several ways. Most eerily, it resembled progressive talking points. Stop outsourcing the dream. Jobs, justice, and the American dream. Paying for the dream. Progressive tax reform and social justice. That's what they talked about. In a recent study of college students, only 10% listed limited government and low taxes and deregulation as ways to help the average person achieve the American dream. Only 10%. Over 80% thought the American dream meant a house, a vacation, retirement funds. Older Americans, immigrants, have a completely different view. Only 6% of adults rank wealth as their first or second definition of the American dream. 32% say freedom. 29% say opportunity. That is freedom. And another 21% said pursuit of happiness. That's freedom as well. Now you know what's happening? An entire generation is growing up with a false definition of the American dream. Refuse to allow it to fade out of existence. This is why we talked about the culture. This is why, quite honestly, can you come over here, follow here? Oh, I'm making Tiffany crazy. Welcome back, Tiffany, by the way. We've written these books over the years. We wrote this one, and I said to your kids, don't use this as a... Don't quote all of the footnotes in the back. Don't quote me. Don't put me in a paper or you get an F. That's why I wrote this one. That's why we wrote this one. And this is the fourth in the series. I swear to you, we have so many researchers. We spend so much time on these books. This is darn near a college education. They will learn more in these 4 books, and this one, the latest, than they'll learn in most colleges about critical thinking. Refuse to allow the American dream to be redefined anymore. Refuse to allow the American dream and the spirit that made us great, the spirit behind that little lemonade stand, refuse to let that fade out of existence on your watch. Back in a minute.
Thinking of buying window blinds from a jack of all trades?
Take a right at the garden gnomes, then a left at the squirrel feeders. You'll see some store maps. That should guide you to where the blinds are located.
At Blinds.com, all we do is blinds. Our experts help from selection to installation, and for a lot less than retail. For a limited time, use code GBTV for an additional 10% off already discounted prices. Blinds.com.
By age 5, I could drain a three-pointer. By 8, I could outplay opponents twice my size. By 10, I knew someday I would make the pros. Focus, dedication, determination. These are the things that have prepared me for today. But for what tomorrow might bring, I prepared with Food Insurance Emergency Food Supply. It gives me the confidence to face any opposition. Order today at foodinsurance.com.
The TRS Files, True Tax Resolution Stories.
Hi, I'm Stuart B. I'm in the insurance industry and I'm from Southern California. I faced a potential liability of $106,000. Tax resolution services settled for $9,200.
If you owe the IRS over $20,000 or more in back taxes, have unfiled returns, or are under audit, call Tax Resolution Services now, 888-7804-TAX, or visit taxresolution.com/GBTV.
The establishment has tried and failed to copy the FreedomWorks model. Why? Because they don't understand how freedom works. So while they were sleeping, we were planning our hostile takeover. It's about the politics of we the people. So get a copy of Hostile Takeover and learn how to take back your liberty today. Get your exclusive excerpt before the book goes on sale by going to www.hostiletakeoverbook.com.
Tatler Reusable Canning Lids. Family owned since 1976. That's right, Tatler Reusable Canning Lids. Yes, reusable, with a lifetime guarantee. Made in America, BPA free. Tatler Reusable Canning Lids. Because those who can, do. Get rid of the disposable lid. Go to reusablecannинglids.com. Tatler Reusable Canning Lids.
A couple of weeks ago, there was a story up on the Blaze that I read, and I found so interesting. But I'm into ghost cities and everything else because it's a little quirk of mine. But this one is this one's entirely different. This isn't a government creating these bogus cities for nothing. This is a group of private business people that are now creating the largest testing and evaluation center in the world right here in the United States. And they're doing it, all of it, without government funding whatsoever. Bob Brumley is here. He's the head of Pegasus Global Holdings. I'm so excited to meet you because I think this is not only just a cool story about what you're building, but I think this shows that somebody that is spending $1 billion, maybe more?
Over a 10-year period.
Okay. $1 billion believes that something great is right around the corner. You're going to test the self-driving cars and everything else. Tell us what you're building.
Well, the Test and Evaluation Center is sort of the broad name for it. What it really is a place for entrepreneurs, government researchers, universities to go and basically take their technology out of a laboratory, which is a perfect environment, and put it in the imperfect environment we live in every day.
So will there be people living in this city?
There will be people working in the city and actually below ground in the city. The city itself will be unpopulated.
Here's the city here. So this is just a bogus city. It'll look just like a regular city?
Well, it'll be more than bogus. It'll be the real deal. It will have essentially interstate highway system around it. It will have a downtown. And the logic behind this, it will be built as if our cities had grown this way. In other words, the eastern part of town is the older part of town, and it'll be built that way. The downtown will be roughly mid-sized American city, about 6 square blocks of mid-sized buildings, 4 to 6 stories, with narrow alleyways to create urban canyons, which create a problem for wireless communications. It'll have a light industrial area. It'll have a light retail area. It'll have suburban homes of ranchers, split level.
And what will people do? Like, you just inferred that you'll be able to test new technology for cell phones. Okay. But there won't be any pedestrians on the streets, right?
No. It's unpopulated for reasons of safety. But people could be actually introduced into the experiments themselves, where you need people to actually interact with technology. But the city primarily is there as a operating environment for you to test smart grid, integrated traffic systems, telecommunications, and the real thing that smart cities, which you've heard about as they're starting to evolve, smart cities, they all have a technology development to be able to run the city more efficiently through systems, operating systems, combined operating system. This city underground will be run by a central operating system.
Show the underground. Can you show the schematic, the computer modeling of this? Tell us what's underground.
Underground will be what we refer to as a network operating center. And what you're seeing here is a rendition of actually entering what would be SITE, the Center for Innovation, Testing, and Evaluation. We have an off-site campus, which is about 8 kilometers or 5 miles away from the city itself, so that researchers, academics, business people can actually live and work in this environment, similar to something that Disney was looking at Epcot the first time.
When he was really, what Epcot turned into is not what he wanted to do.
Correct.
This is really closer to what he wanted to do.
This is closer. This is, although his was populated.
Yeah, his was it was a combination, a hybrid of what.
Exactly. Yeah. We have a backbone hub, and then that backbone hub is where all the power, water, telecommunications will branch out. And then underneath the city, which is we call the city lab, is all the different districts in where test and evaluation will occur. And it's built like our American cities have developed. That's run by the operations center below ground, which would be running all the systems, power, water, communications, security, and we'll have, as we say here, post-World War II suburbs. Those are ranchers, generally. Then you'll have the streetcar suburbs. Those are the ones that we're more familiar with on the East Coast, expanding out of the city. You'll end up with more sophisticated downtown neighborhoods like that. And all of this is not to basically be a city technology. It's that all our technology lives in this environment. And so it's sort of agnostic as...
So will you, first of all, no government money?
No.
Okay. You're raising money for it now?
Well, as you know the rules, we are beginning the process.
Okay, all right. You're looking for people like Google that wanted to do the Google car. I'm just using as an example.
Let me give you sort of a rundown of how the capital plan works, because it's a private sector approach.
Don't bore me to death on that.
I won't.
Okay.
I won't. Yeah, two seconds. Okay, 2 seconds. You want to have, first of all, the kinds of entrepreneurs who want to invest in something like this.
Yes.
Those are usually private equity. Okay. Then you want people who invest in the operating facility that generates revenue. That's the water, the power, the telecommunications facility. Then you want an investor who wants a long return on their investment. Those are bond investors. So you're really not doing one raise, you're doing 5, 6, 7 raises.
Okay. So you'll be able to test like EMPs?
Yes. Electromagnetic pulse for the audience.
Yeah, this audience this audience is aware of what an EMP is. So you'll be able to test things like that. And when you put this up, do you remember the old 1940s, or I think it was 1940s, where they did in the desert and they set up the cities? Do we happen to have any of that footage?
Oh, the black and white?
Yeah, the old black and white where we would test an atomic bomb. That's
sure,
an
and they
EMP.
did that in New Mexico.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So when they tested that, they set up everything exactly. Here it is. They put mannequins in dresses, and they had everything there exactly the way it was, and then they blew it up. You're not going to be doing explosions, but will this city be, I mean, basically a ghost city? It'll be exactly the way our cities...
Everything will be operational as if the people had just walked out the door that morning.
Why'd you pick New Mexico?
A lot of really good reasons. One is New Mexico's #1 in the United States for federally funded research and academic research. It's a big surprising statistic. For example,
why is that?
The commitment of the Department of Energy, and historically you have Los Alamos, you have Sandia. 1/3 of New Mexico's GDP is from the Department of Energy, $29 billion a year.
Well, you're so lucky that I am never going to run for president, because that would be one of the departments I would cut. But that's...
But I will give you the spread, and the spread is they're 49th in commercialization of that technology. So if you look at, we're making in investments. We make $480 billion a year in investment in research. This government does, the taxpayers do. We get less than 5% on return on that investment.
So that's the problem.
But that's the opportunity. And that's what the city's intended to do. We've looked at this market, and globally there's $1.3 trillion spent in R&D. In all federal labs and all universities around the world. In the U.S., those numbers you can see are $480 billion. Out of that, excuse me.
How far away is this from a population center?
The facility is roughly 5 miles, 5 to 6 miles.
No, that's from the little town here where you can live. But I mean, how far away is this from? Is 5 miles also from another city that's already... Have you picked the site?
Yes, we have.
And when do you break ground on this?
We would like to break ground as soon as we capture the land. We're in the process of negotiating purchasing the land now. And my fingers are crossed was June 29th. I think it's probably closer to November. As we refer to it, instead of turning dirt, the lawyers have said we need to turn pages first.
Yes. You know the story about Walt Disney and Roy Disney when they bought the land?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Why are you coming out with it now? Because that was the worst thing. That's what got Walt in trouble.
Actually, our background is basically testing and developing technology on a worldwide basis, and we were frustrated as a small company. We couldn't get on a range. We couldn't get a place to test. And we finally, literally, I mean, it's not any more complicated. We said, why can't we just have our own range?
And what industry were you in?
It's the same one we're still in. We have 3 sectors we operate in. One is defense and security. One is what we call aerospace, which is primarily satellites and launch vehicles and that sort of thing. And then one is innovation. It used to be telecommunications, but now it's innovation because it's a much broader sector. And we find we're not the first to do this, but we're pretty good at it. We look for technology in, say, England to fill what would be a requirement here in the U.S. And so the Department of Defense or other U.S. government agencies, they put out interesting requirements looking for technology to solve a problem. We look globally for it under the premise that somebody must have worked on this somewhere.
Is there any place like this on Earth?
No, not of this scale and scope. And the reason is that there are plenty of test ranges. But the budget process means that if you're a Department of Defense test range, you are testing what they want you to test. So there's lots of centers of excellence in this country, lots of test ranges, but there's not a holistic facility.
So in other words, the Department of Defense might be doing something in one area, but I want to run something else in a whole bunch of kitchens in another area, and you'd be able to run those tests for me simultaneously.
Sure. I'll give you a better example. You're operating a system to run the entire city, and it's what they call a system of systems, and maybe the Department of Defense wants to see how that works so they can run their cybersecurity program against it. Now, you are running your city operation. You don't even know that they're doing it, but they're doing it in a way that they understand how your system works, and so to protect your system or, in fact, to look at other people's systems.
Okay, you said one thing in this interview that put my radar up, because I believe in smart technology. I'm not a stupid man. I don't like the government intrusion. I'm a little phobic. I'm George Washington. I'm a little phobic of concentrated power, and I don't like the fact that our government is so involved, because I could see a day, hopefully not in my lifetime, where people say, everybody's got to have a temperature of this, and they just shut things down. You know, we're doing the rolling brownouts now. I mean, what's really the difference? You'll help test that, won't you?
We will help test it, yes. And, you know, the world I live in is sort of two bookends, Asimov and Orwell. And you live in between the bookends.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, the guardians of both extremes have to keep an eye on where this is, but you do not want to chill the creative juices.
No, I agree with you.
But you also want to protect.
Right.
On the
What
other side.
you do is different than what the citizens are supposed to do to make sure that technology, et cetera, is implemented properly. Science isn't a bad thing and not to be feared.
No, yeah, good example. The least and most benign thing you can think of in your home is your thermostat. You just alluded to it. If you, like a lot of the demographic below age 30, now no longer wants to pay the telephone company for a copper wire, that thermostat talks to the power company wirelessly through the wireless network. Now, what can it tell it? Right now, it tells how many kilowatt hours and what your range is and how often you use it. Tell it a lot more. And then you set standards. Now, you got 100 houses or 100,000 houses, and it turns out that that neighborhood of those houses are composed of 40% electric pigs. And then you've got another 60% are efficient or really good users. So you come up with a policy. You're going to have to pay more to stay cooler in the summer, and you're going to have to pay more premium charging, just like cell phone charges, if you want to stay warmer in the winter. The next step of that gets toward the Orwellian part. I'm not going to charge you more or less. I'm just going to tell you your thermostat's set at 78 in the summer and it's 67 in the winter. Buy a blanket. And then after that, what else can that thing be communicating back and forth? As much as you want to develop the technology and its capability, citizens can also test it and see how extreme it can be. And that only through that transparency do you come up with a common sense use of the technology.
Fascinating stuff, and it gives me hope that there is a group of private entrepreneurs that say the world is going to be a much brighter place, and we have great breakthroughs on the horizon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Back in a minute.
Do you want to change America? Activate.
We are in the fight of our lives. We are witnessing firsthand the fundamental transformation of America.
33 million Americans think they're registered to vote, but they're not. Go to glennbeck.com today to register yourself and your friends to vote. Elections have been won and lost by one vote. Don't become a statistic this fall. Make your voice heard.
Is there anything more important than making sure that you and your family has food in case you lose a job or, I don't know, whatever, there's a hurricane that happens? Food insurance can help you make sure that you could always feed your family come what may. They have various meal plans. They have backpacks designed to meet your needs so you can just grab and go, 72-hour kits. It's a great place to start. The average cost is $2 per entree. You can take it with you, whether it's a year's supply or all at once. You can look. We did the can thing. It's hard. My family used to do the canning thing. That's hard. May I suggest that you call Food Insurance or go to foodinsurance.com and look and see if this is right for you and your family. Talk to them. Let them help you line out a plan for you and your family and take it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Not that I'm eating an elephant, I might look like it. I digress. Go to foodinsurance.com now. Call toll-free 1-866-9-GOT-FOOD.
In 2000, the U.S. national debt was $5.6 trillion, and gold was $272 an ounce. By 2010, the U.S. debt was $13.5 trillion. Gold had risen to $1,421. Today, our government is projecting over $20 trillion of debt in the year 2016. Isn't it time? You own gold? You can't control federal spending, but you can control where you put your investment dollars. Goldline has safely delivered billions of dollars in gold to its clients for over 50 years. Diversifying with gold is a smart strategy, and it's easy to get started. Call Goldline and get your free investor kit. Be sure to ask about our price guarantee program. Use your credit card for safety and convenience and enjoy free shipping. Call Goldline now and buy gold with confidence. Get started today with Goldline.
Tired of twisting and turning that stubborn old garden hose onto a spigot? Sick of getting soaked when it won't fit right? Now just snap on and off with Snap 2.0. It lets you snap, snap, snap all your hose supplies in 1 second flat. Just attach the connectors to any fixture, then snap off a sprinkler and snap on a garden feeder. Fast and easy. Snap 2.0's universal connector fits thousands of different watering fixtures, and its interlocking technology clamps both sides together to create a watertight seal. Even over this expensive computer, not a single drop. When you order, we'll send you not 1 but 2 sets for just $10. Plus this adjustable pressure nozzle to power blast grime, free. But call now and we'll double the entire offer free. Just pay separate processing and handling. That's 4 Snap 2.0 sets and 2 pressure nozzles, all for just $10.
To order Snap 2.0 for $10 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-875-3128 or order online at snap20.com.
Hello, friend. I'm Pat Boone. Are you dreaming of an ideal retirement? Well, if you're 62 or older, there's a smart and easy way to get the money to make it happen. A reverse mortgage from my friends at Security One Lending, a national leader in reverse mortgages. They can help you turn the equity in your home into tax-free cash. Call to get this free, no-obligation information kit, which includes an educational video and the top 10 things to know about reverse mortgages. Why don't you call now?
Well, tomorrow is our National Bake Sale Lemonade Stand Hug-a-thon show. We're celebrating all the good things that the government is now banning. I want you to look at this map. This is a dream come true. A country populated with giant cupcakes. Yes, but that's not what it really is. Oh, a man can dream. What this represents, 255 stands nationwide already registered to be open for business tomorrow, and many more people are working hard at building theirs. In Paris, California, the Zavala family had wanted to set up a lemonade stand, but they were shut down. They applied for a permit. The county said the only way they could set up a bake sale or lemonade stand, I'm not kidding, is if they would apply to be a restaurant and then get certified in food safety. You got to be kidding me. California, what the hell has happened to you? It's not stopping them. They tell us they're going to continue their fight for the right to have a bake sale or a lemonade stand. And every single act counts, whether it's big or small. Here in Texas, John used his dance moves. Do we have John's there? Getting people to do it. He charged 25 cents for a dance and a glass of lemonade. He raised $3 over the weekend. God bless you. In Georgia, the Barrett family raised $100 by selling food at their bake sale. That was this last weekend. Tomorrow, a group of teens want to restore our country's founding principles. Members from San Diego told us that this is why they're participating in tomorrow's bake sale. Watch this.
While we're passionate about limiting government, we know it requires greater personal responsibility.
This means that as a community, we all have to do our part, and now's the time for us to pull together.
And coming to the beach for a cookie and a glass of lemonade is just one small way you can help.
It's like they look like a 1960s Disney film, don't they? They look like we are here and we're ready to take charge. God bless them. We are going to check in with them again tomorrow when we broadcast live from Babe's Chicken right in Cedar Hill, Texas. Hundreds are already telling us they plan to be there. Come out and join us tomorrow for a live broadcast of television and then a book signing afterwards. I'd love to meet you and shake your hand. I'd love to say hello. And thank you for your hard work. Make this the biggest lemonade stand and bake sale the state of Texas have ever seen. I've seen it. If you haven't registered your stand, still time. Go to glennbeck.com now. We'll see you in Dallas tomorrow night. Good night, America.
Breaking news tonight. We've got real news. This just in.
Real news from the Blaze.
Welcome to Real News, everybody. North Dakota might not find itself in the spotlight too often, but today voters in the state will go to the polls to decide two important ballot initiatives. And Will Kane, you're bringing it to us.
That's right. Quick. I say the state of North Dakota, and you think of what?
Pheasant hunting.
No, I'm sorry, not at once. One more time.
The Fighting Sioux.
Pheasant hunting.
Fargo.
Oil.
Buck wins.
What?
Family Feud.
Yeah. Hey, they said they were going to the Twin Cities.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, is that useful to you?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
Yeah.
So Buck wins.
Don't you know?
Unnecessary
Didn't know it was
pop
coming, but great minds think alike, Will.
That's right.
Meld.
But I think Amy gets second place because I think of oil, too, as well. With the current Bakken field oil boom in the state of North Dakota, it's leading to all kinds of huge revenues coming into the state. And I think, actually, the Fighting Sioux is apropos as well.
That was Matt's. Mine is pheasant hunting.
Oh, yours was the least. I'm sorry, Matt. But these days, I think the state of North Dakota is also serving for something else. It's serving for an illustration of what Justice Louis Brandeis once said. We have a quote from him when he said, "It is one of the happy incidences of the federal system that a single courageous state may, if its citizens choose, serve as a laboratory and try novel social and economic experiments without risk to the rest of the country." That, in shorthand, is what we've come to know as little laboratories of federalism, which we've mentioned numerous times on this program. And most recently, over the last couple weeks, we've talked about in regards to the nanny state and Mayor Bloomberg and regulating the size of your sodas. But North Dakota is offering an experiment in little laboratories of federalism, and I think the viewers of this program might appreciate a little more. They have two ballot measures. It's actually more than two, one of which is to debate the future nickname of the University of North Dakota, whether or not it will remain the Fighting Sioux, but two that we're going to talk about today. The first ballot measure that the state of North Dakota is debating is whether or not to adopt a constitutional amendment to their state constitution to do away with property taxes. Now, property taxes account for something like $812 million in annual revenue to the state of North Dakota. But many citizens there, seeing that boom in oil and oil tax revenue coming into the state and seeing surpluses come into that state, numerous times over the last decade, in fact, we can show you, over the last decade, the state of North Dakota has run a revenue surplus, I think, every year outside of two, it looks like. Expenditures have been below revenue. And with the state building up surpluses year over year like that, some of the citizens of the state of North Dakota are wondering, why do we then need to keep paying property taxes?
Makes sense.
Makes sense. So they're offering a ballot measure to say, we're going to do away with, we're going to ban property taxes in the state of North Dakota. So let's talk about that. Do we think that is a step in the right direction? No, Matt's already shaking his head no. Right? Why?
Well, because this is what happens. When times are good, people want to spend. They don't want to pay their taxes. They don't want to pay their bills, whatever it might be. What happens when price of oil drops? Let's assume it drops in the next couple of years. The amount of oil coming out of the fracking in the Bakken Shale, North Dakota, slows down. Suddenly, they're not running with this surplus. It flips over. Now what happens when you have to reinstate property taxes to get back to that surplus?
Or I would offer you this.
You know what it's going to be like trying to pass that bill to say, for the last 4 or 5 years, however long it may be, you do not pay any property taxes. But now, because the oil boom is no longer here, you have to start paying property taxes.
So
people will be up in arms.
Would you support a one-time rebate check?
Right here in my
giving
notes.
the exact number of dollars that they would get back from saving on property taxes to each individual homeowner.
My solution for North Dakota is you take it year by year, and you get a rebate tax. When I lived in Colorado for some time, casinos came in, and suddenly it was a big boom to the economy in Colorado. So at the end of the year, we'd get a rebate check back based on the amount of money that came in, generated in taxes from the casinos.
Right.
The same exact thing should be done in North Dakota, because I agree with you, Essie, if they're bringing this amount of money in, it's almost like a large corporation. When you're sitting on cash, you pay it back out in dividends to your shareholders. And who would you rather have the money? the corporations slash North Dakota government or yourself. And I think yourself.
Well, isn't the principle here that they don't want people to be able to lose their homes, right? Isn't that really, we're talking about this very much in terms of budgets, and the assumption that's being made is that you wouldn't make up these revenues in other ways, whether it was some transactional taxes, if it was income taxes, whatever the case may be. Usually when you eliminate one tax, the government finds a way to institute another. But on the core principle here that you can't lose your home because of a tax bill, I think that's kind of an interesting premise. It makes me think of Florida, where they have the Homestead Act, which means that you can't lose your home to debtors. You actually can lose your home because of taxes, or if the mortgage holder wants their home back.
North Dakota might be in the black right now, but the people of North Dakota are not wealthy in general. So exactly to your point, this is because even though North Dakota is doing well as a state, there are still plenty of people in North Dakota who are having trouble paying their mortgage.
They're offering two arguments. I mean. It's about people keeping their home. I mean, we're talking about this in terms of budgets, but there's the issue at hand here is people don't feel like just waking up in the morning in the home they've woken up in for 50 years or whatever. They should just have the government be able to come in and take it because they're under tough times.
They're offering two arguments of why they would like to abolish property taxes, one of which is the state surpluses. They see it as unnecessary. But I think you make a great point. You don't budget for when times are good. And we often analyze that regarding spending, but we don't analyze it regarding taxes. If you start cutting taxes when times are good, what do you do when times are bad? The answer to your question is they won't go back to property taxes. That'll be too difficult. They'll jack up income taxes, which leads me to your argument, which many people are forwarding, is the morality argument. I have a quote here from a citizen of North Dakota. I'd like to be able to know that my home, no matter what happens to my income tax or my life, is not going to be taken away because I can't pay a tax. And they have a second person who says, this turns us all into essentially renters. But what I would say is to that morality argument is, an income tax is equally as punitive and equally as immoral. I mean, if you say that the state has a prior lien on all your earnings, you can say, well, then I've been turned into a slave. If you say 30% of everything I earn, you get a prior claim to, then the same way you're calling yourself a renter instead of a homeowner, I could say I'm a slave.
So let's say if you wanted to sustain yourself, priced out of their homes. You see this all the time, that folks buy a little house back in the 1970s, and the value of the house keeps going up and up and up, but their income doesn't match the increase in the value of their homes, but their tax assessments do. And so literally their tax is higher than their mortgage. I don't have an opinion on how North Dakota should handle its tax budget policy. I think it's notable that apparently it's opposed, actually, this ballot initiative by most voters, as well as a Republican governor, that they see it as it's going to really hurt their budgeting ability. But in terms of being an experiment in how folks are, taking control and taking power over their own tax future, I think it's fantastic.
If nothing else, it makes people look at how the state is spending its money. Because if you have to make up for a shortfall, people say, well, wait a second, since we don't have this tax anymore, where is all that money going?
But it's also a personal responsibility issue, which is what you're getting to, Amy. And these are people who are asking for more personal responsibility. And the fact that North Dakota is considering giving it to them, I mean, this has, I think, very good implications, but also could be very risky.
So let me say, Amy,
they have to be more organized in convincing their fellow citizens, hey, let's get on board with this. I think the constitutional amendment, maybe that went too far for a lot of voters, perhaps.
I think you make a good point that it is opposed basically by all the moneyed interest in the state and all the polls. People in North Dakota don't seem to be willing to embrace the abolishment of property tax. Let's go on to the second ballot measure that North Dakota wants to initiate, and that is the Religious Liberty Restoration Act. And it's going to add a clause to the state constitution that says that any government putting a law into place that on its face is neutral but has an effect on religious institutions must show a compelling interest in order to put that burden on a person whose actions or decisions are informed by a religious belief. And the state must show that they are putting those measures into place through the least restrictive means possible. Now, I just want to go quick little recap here. This all started with peyote. Remember, we've talked about it at this table. In the 1990s, Employment Division versus Smith, the Supreme Court said that the state could put into place laws that stepped on religious beliefs. In this case, it was a Native American who smoked peyote as part of his religious beliefs. And the Supreme Court said, doesn't matter, the state can make that law. In response to that, the Congress adopted the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which said that essentially the same thing. The state must show a compelling interest and choose the least restrictive means possible. It made me wonder, why does the state of North Dakota need to do this? If we have this at the federal level, why does the state of North Dakota need to enact this law? And the answer to that is, in 1997, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was deemed by the Supreme Court not to apply to states. So this is an attempt by the state of North Dakota to mimic the effects of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act on the state level, thus having an effect on things like Obamacare's attempt to force institutions to provide contraception. They're going to essentially take this up on the state level.
So can I ask, are they looking to pass this law to preempt Obamacare, the HHS decision having to do with religious institutions, or was there a local, state-level precipitating event that North Dakotans said, you know, I don't like the way that local official is trying to trample on my religious freedom?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know if this was a response to national policy or a local issue, but it will undoubtedly have effects at the national level, as many people see North Dakota as kind of a proxy for how you can handle these issues on a state-by-state basis.
They said that they planned this before. This had been in the works,
right?
Predating the HHS mandate about contraception, which one would think could have spurred this kind of a thing. But yeah, it seems like they're trying to do at the state level what the federal government has done. But it's really just, it sort of tips the scales more because it still has in there, there's a compelling state interest. Right. So all they're saying is that sort of on the face of things, when you're looking at a religious freedom versus a state or federal law issue, we're going to try to give a little more to this side of the equation, but it doesn't mean that you can get it, you know, like the peyote case. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be able to do whatever you want under the aegis of religion.
And a lot of the experts' thoughts that I was reading about this said, you know, it's not written very well. Kind of they just threw it together, put it in there, and it's more, I think, something from national level and see what happens. You know, I don't think they're really hoping it's going to get passed. I think it's going to get passed, I should say. Kind of just threw it out there, and I saw one example they put in there and said, well, this can now have let's say, a Christian society can fire a woman who's an unmarried pregnant woman. So it may be going a little bit too far, but again, maybe it's just setting a precedent that America's moving in that direction. I'm not sure.
It's inviting lawsuits, but it's hoping that it will push the winners of the lawsuits to one side of the equation.
Opponents of the bill say it can open the door to discrimination for exactly what you're talking about. If you have an employer who's a devout Christian and runs his business according to some kind of Christian principles, could look at an unwed pregnant employee and go, that doesn't fit in with what we do here. But Buck points out the standard is still pretty strict. The state must show a compelling
state interest, which is the highest, legally standard, the highest interest you can show.
So does this go in the direction of being able to celebrate Christmas at Christmas time, that the state can't impose neutrality of religious expression in the public square?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure.
Because we certainly know, like, we have these battles, it seems, every holiday season.
Yeah, we'll see. North Carolina, again, will be the experimental federalist case.
What do we think?
I think it looks like the first
property
one won't
taxes
be.
and no
It's interesting to talk about, but not going to happen.
What about the Fighting Sioux? Are they going to keep the Fighting Sioux name?
Really matters.
We touched about that at the beginning. That is another one of the measures they're talking about. Whether or not
that is an awesome nickname. What is the problem?
Those are fighting words. Do they regularly find themselves in bracketology in the NCAA basketball championships?
They have been recently.
Are they good?
No, they're not that good.
Oh.
But it's just cool to say Fighting
Maybe
Sioux.
they need a new name. Who knows?
You can have the Fighting Irish anyway.
As if you needed...
Cleveland Indians. Washington Redskins. I mean, we still have plenty of them.
There we are. As if you needed any further motivation to get to the polls this November, an Obama second term might bring with it immigration reform. We'll have the details when we come back.
MyPatriotSupply.com presents LifeStraw. With LifeStraw, you can immediately and safely drink water like this and like this. LifeStraw is the ultra-lightweight personal water purifier that has been turning heads and saving lives since 2005. With a patented set of filters, you can drink directly from contaminated floodwaters and from ponds, lakes, and streams anywhere in the world without worry. Get LifeStraw now at MyPatriotSupply.com. Clean water from virtually any source on sale today at MyPatriotSupply.com.
Do you struggle to read the keys on your regular keyboard? Are you constantly hitting the wrong keys by accident? Then you need Easy Eyes, the new large print keyboard that makes typing easy on your eyes. This one-of-a-kind keyboard is even spill-proof. Watch as we pour this entire glass of water over the keys. The liquid drains right out, and the keys work just like before. You could pay more than $60 for a keyboard of this quality, and you'd still struggle to see the keys. But call now, and the Easy Eyes large print keyboard is yours for only $14.95. We'll even include this matching ergonomic mouse, a $30 value, yours free. But order right now and we'll double the offer and give you a second Easy Eyes keyboard and the ergonomic mouse for the amazing low price of just $14.95. Just pay separate processing and handling. Call and order yours today.
To order Easy Eyes for $14.95, call 1-800-650-2373 or order online at GetEasyEyes.com.
I live alone, so when I slipped and fell in the kitchen last month and couldn't get to a phone, that's when I knew I needed Life Alert. With just one press of this button, I'm connected to the Life Alert Center, where I can get the help I need, even when I cannot reach a phone. With Life Alert, I'm never alone.
Call 1-800-996-6392 for your free Life Alert brochure. That's 1-800-996-6392. Call today.
Reportedly, President Obama and his advisors had been planning second-term policy initiatives almost from the time he was elected. One of those advisors in the latest edition of the New Yorker magazine confirmed that among them is immigration reform. So as we await a Supreme Court ruling on whether federal immigration policy trumps state policy in the Arizona case, voters will want to keep a close eye on clues as to what President Obama might have in store after November. So, Buck, get us started.
Well, this article really took an interesting tone because it was laying out that there's always been an 8-year plan for the Obama administration. And it sort of took along the lines, the Congress has been obstructionist, and Barack Obama, President Obama, would love to pursue, for example, climate change in a second term. But that's been difficult so far. So what would be the signature thing for him to do after passing Obamacare in the first term? It would be immigration reform. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of cognitive dissonance when it comes to this administration and how it deals with the issue of illegal immigration, because on the one hand, there's a lot of signals that it's sort of favorable towards it. Of course, it brought a lawsuit against Arizona because of enforcement efforts there at the state level, which we're going to see the Supreme Court talking about soon. But on top of that, it also claims to be incredibly strict when it comes to illegal immigration. The Obama administration is always touting its ability to lock down the border and deport illegal immigrants. So we should take a look at what Obama himself says about this. Play that clip.
We tripled the number of intelligence analysts working at the border. I've deployed unmanned aerial vehicles to patrol the skies from Texas to California. We have forged a partnership with Mexico to fight the transnational criminal organizations that have affected both of our countries.
Well, interesting, because, he's essentially laying out there that he has really locked things down. And let's put aside the fact that 50,000 people have died in Mexico as a result of the cartel wars there, and also the border agents, we've talked about this in the show before, who say that the administration is effectively cooking the books to some degree on this, avoiding high enforcement areas. But we can just take a look at the president's own website to see what the vision would be, again, in term 2. Continuing to fulfill federal government's responsibility to securing our borders, well, demanding accountability for businesses that break the law by undermining American workers and exploiting undocumented workers. It gets more interesting, though. Strengthening our economic competitiveness by creating a legal immigration system that reflects our values and diverse needs. We have a legal immigration system. That doesn't make mention of it there. And then, this is the most interesting one, requiring responsibility from people who are living in the United States illegally. So he's just accepting there. On the one hand, he's saying we've devoted more resources to the border than any administration before us. We're locking things down. On the other hand, he's saying those who choose to break the law and be here illegally have to be well behaved while breaking the law and being here illegally. So this has obviously caused some fighting. Romney doesn't view things the way that Obama does. And in fact, he has some pretty choice words for what he thinks this administration is doing on immigration reform. Let's play that clip.
He campaigned saying he was going to reform immigration laws and simplify and protect the border and so forth. And then he had 2 years with a Democrat House and Democrat Senate and a supermajority in each house, and he did nothing.
Well, Obama disagrees, because he would be the first to point out that this administration has, at least by its own numbers, deported more illegal immigrants than any administration before it. You can put up the numbers. It's 396,906. About half of those had criminal convictions. The policy of the administration has been in the first term that they will focus on what they call the worst elements, criminals who are here illegally. But what's interesting is this has had almost no impact whatsoever on Hispanic support for President Obama. Take a look at that. Barack Obama 65, Mitt Romney 25. So, as you can see, guys, a very complicated picture here going into what could be a second Obama presidency, second term of his presidency, I should say. And so what I want to ask you is, what are we seeing here? Is the administration taking for granted Hispanic votes and assumes that it can do things here, it can get away with stricter enforcement, assuming the numbers are correct, which is a whole separate discussion, and a lot of people that work the border say they are not correct, that they are cooking the books. But we'll just take their numbers at face value. If those numbers are correct, why haven't Hispanic communities in this country risen up in arms over this issue, if this is something near and dear to their hearts, which I think we all believe it is. The other alternative to me, as I see it, is that in the first term, Obama has moved towards health care reform, which will change the American economy, will change the way Americans get health care. In term 2, if he were able to get a massive amnesty program, it would change the American electorate. You would have Democratic majorities enshrined in certain states and possibly even at the federal level. So what are we seeing, guys? I really mean that. What do you think is going on?
Well, in the shot you just played, if I recall, unfortunately didn't include the best part, that he said Republicans would not be, be convinced until there were moats with alligators in them from that. Do you remember that when he gave that speech down at the border, that they wouldn't be persuaded? And then there's another quote.
So no alligators, but drones, though.
Right, correct. That he says that the challenge we've got on immigration reform is simple. I've got a majority of Democrats who are prepared to vote for it, and I've got no Republicans who are prepared to vote for it. So when you put those two quotes together of the president, it seems that he's really injecting this partisanship into the issue instead of solutions. Because, in fact, as we know, John McCain is a big supporter of comprehensive immigration reform. George Bush before him was a big supporter of comprehensive immigration reform. President Obama doesn't seem to be trying to cultivate the other side.
Well, one thing is he had obviously 2 years of complete Democratic control of the House and the Senate. So that he got nothing done on this issue during those 2 years would seem to belie that it was a major focus point for the president at that time. But look, the Republicans seem to be pretty clear on this issue, at least in terms of what has to happen. You have to secure the border, and then you can deal with the population that is here. The Obama administration is claiming they are securing the border, which, again, we can argue whether or not that is true. But in term 2, in 4 more years of Obama, if he is, I guess the question really becomes, is he going to move towards the center, as this New Yorker article says, or are we going to see somebody who wants to cement his legacy, doesn't care because he doesn't have to run for re-election, and therefore will really push hard for amnesty, could actually, think that he could get that done, not at 3 million, which Reagan did, by the way, in 1986, but at 10 million, 12 million, whatever the case may be, comprehensive amnesty.
Well, don't you think that if Obama gets a second term, he will treat it like a mandate?
I would think so.
Right?
The New Yorker piece was trying to say that, no, he would be more of a moderate because he'll probably have a divided Congress. But the New Yorker piece also blamed everything that hasn't happened so far in Congress.
I mean, there's only two choices, right, for a president who wins a second term. Do you go full throttle toward your ideological bent, the stuff you wanted to get done, and consider it a mandate? Or do you protect your legacy and say, okay, I want to be known as a president who still got along with people or who still got stuff done? And I don't see him going toward that latter. I see him thinking in his mind, okay, even with all of the, opposition to Obamacare and the most liberal centerpieces of my administration, I still got reelected. I'm going full out.
Do you think it's kind of a bait and switch then, in a sense? It's at least create the perception, as we saw in the clip with Obama, I am a hardliner. The same way that he surprised people with national security. Is he?
That's a reaction. I don't think that was a choice. I think that setup was a reaction to the brouhaha, the outrage on the right over Fast and Furious, Arizona being sued. I think he had to come out and say, okay, we're taking this seriously. Calm down, everyone. We take border control seriously. I don't think he would have made those statements if he hadn't had to quiet people
on the
down.
Deportation number, though, which they're touting. They're saying, I see what you're saying, which is they're trying to just sound strong on the border in general, which we've discussed before is probably not true. But again, for our purposes now, we have to just sort of go with that they would hold up deportations of mostly, Latin Americans, 75% of them are Mexican. To hold that up as something this administration is proud of, have it not affect their poll numbers so far. That's the shocking part. That is the cognitive dissonance that I can't understand.
Do you believe that? Do you think most Latin American voters out there really believe that he's going to really shut down the border, and that's something that one of his goals? No, nobody truly who knows Obama or thinks they're in Obama's head at all. He will push amnesty 100%. And we're going to have 10 million. He's going to buy 10 million voters by doing that.
So you're with me on this, that he's creating the perception that the border is secure in order to push for amnesty in the second term. And that's kind of where we are.
He's getting votes that way.
But I can't believe that to your ears, if you are a Hispanic immigrant and you hear the president talking about how many people he's deported, I can't believe that doesn't register somehow and affect your view of him. Those poll numbers are very surprising.
Politics being also a game of comparison and contrast. what about the Republican? Is Mitt Romney going to be like squishier on the border? Is he going to have more open borders?
He has
like,
the
no,
political leash to do this. He knows he can get away with that. It will be no political cost because the alternative is Mitt Romney, who's been about as hawkish on the border as you can possibly be to win the Republican primary. So he can do this. I think you're right. He did it out of a reaction. He did it because he had to, because he was seen so poor on so many other issues dealing with the border.
At that point,
but let me say this. I reject the premise that you're setting out here that should he decide to accept his second term as a mandate that he'll go for wholesale amnesty on immigration. If he sees his second term as a mandate, he's going to go for some kind of climate change bill and cap and trade. I don't think he sees immigration reform and a 12 million individual amnesty as his opportunity for ramming something through on a partisan basis.
Why don't you?
I think
that's Democratic votes for the next decade.
If Reagan,
because it's a sheer impossibility. It's just not going to happen. He's going to have to.
You don't think he feels burned after Solyndra and all of that, and he's going to shift our attention elsewhere?
The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 made 3 million illegal immigrants legal in this country, and that was under Ronald Reagan.
That will require.
So maybe it wouldn't be 12 million, Will. Maybe it would be 6, but I mean the effect is still the same. That would have a.
That will require a 2-year period looking very much like the first 2 years of his presidency, which would require a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House, and of course his own re-election. That just simply isn't going to happen with any kind of Republican influence in the federal government. But even
Republicans, this is the point. Even Republicans say, we've talked about this. Charles Krauthammer, other analysts that are part of certainly the establishment.
I am someone who am open to the concept of a DREAM Act or something like that. But that is not amnesty on the schedule you're talking about.
Right, but that's not where I was going with this. I was going to say that even Republicans say that once you've secured the border, once the border is secure, then you have to deal with the illegal immigrants in this country. And a lot of Republicans, mainstream Republicans who call themselves conservatives, say that as long as step 1 happens, step 2 is some form of a path towards legalization. So why you're saying this is a crazy idea? Obama has basically made this case that the border is now more secure than it's ever been. We don't believe it, but that's fine. The point is that in its second term, the pieces are there for him to push for wholesale legalization.
And so are the people. What has he been pushing his entire first term? Big government. He now has 10 more people under the government because most of these illegal immigrants that do become legal immigrants or legal citizens are going to be on welfare, are going to be on food stamps. They're going to be under the watch of the government expanding socialism.
But why would he go through the messy legislative process with a Republican-controlled House, fewer potentially Democrats in the Senate, when in fact he could just be doing this at the executive level? In another piece about this, a pro-Obama, sort of pro-liberal supporter said if the DHS program, the one that was just supposed to identify the worst of the worst and deport them, said if it worked properly, immigrants would qualify for some quasi-status that allows a person to functionally work here, get a driver's license, and be a part of American life, which is basically to do an end run around the legislative process. Just do it through DHS and you get the same result.
I think by pretending to be a border hawk, the most hawkish on the border, this administration setting themselves up to move towards massive amnesty in the second term. But I could be wrong, Amy.
You make a compelling case.
Yes. Attorney General Eric Holder, he testified on the Hill yet again today, this time before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Are the fiery exchanges part of tonight's top 3 stories? Find out after the break.
The TRS Files, True Tax Resolution Stories.
Hi, I'm Stuart B. I'm in the insurance industry and I'm from Southern California. I faced a potential liability of $106,000. Tax resolution services settled for $9,200.
If you owe the IRS over $20,000 or more in back taxes, have unfiled returns, or are under audit, call Tax Resolution Services now, 888-7804-TAX, or visit taxresolution.com/GBTV.
By age 5, I could drain a three-pointer. By 8, I could outplay opponents twice my size. By 10, I knew someday I would make the pros. Focus, dedication, determination. These are the things that have prepared me for today. But for what tomorrow might bring, I prepared with Food Insurance Emergency Food Supply. It gives me the confidence to face any opposition. Order today at foodinsurance.com.
The establishment has tried and failed to copy the FreedomWorks model. Why? Because they don't understand how freedom works. So while they were sleeping, we were planning our hostile takeover. It's about the politics of we the people. So get a copy of Hostile Takeover and learn how to take back your liberty today. Get your exclusive excerpt before the book goes on sale by going to www.hostiletakeoverbook.com. Blaze.com.
Thinking of buying window blinds from a jack of all trades?
Take a right at the garden gnomes, then a left at the squirrel feeders. You'll see some store maps. That should guide you to where the blinds are located.
At Blinds.com, all we do is blinds. Our experts help from selection to installation, and for a lot less than retail. For a limited time, use code GBTV for an additional 10% off already discounted prices. Blinds.com.
Attorney General Eric Holder told the Senate Judiciary Committee today that he's stuck to his guns. Well, you'll find the details, irony, and all at theblaze.com. Is it among tonight's top 3 stories? We'll ask the site's editor-in-chief, Scott Baker.
It is indeed, Amy, and we have a lot going on the Blaze.com today. As we check ChartPay, take a look at the top stories. The number 3 story right now is one of the ones that was in our list last night. At the time that we put it on the site last night, we went on the air at Real News. It had not been up very long. The story of the Texas father who apparently confronted a molester attacking his 4-year-old daughter and beat the man to death in their small Texas town. That story, as I was telling you last night, had begun to really gain, obviously, a lot of outrage, a lot of interest. In fact, it may be the most circulated Blaze story on Facebook ever. It's over 20,000 recommendations right now, and a lot of people continuing to look and focus on that. We'll be doing continual follow-ups on that story as well. Number 2 story on the Blaze right now, Alan West, and just a simple thing. It was a thing we put out. We saw it, and he had a new ad for his campaign, and we said, well, let's put up the new Alan West campaign ad. Boom! All of a sudden, that story starts taking off like crazy. Now, the story that you mentioned about Eric Holder, as you know, there have been many calls for him to resign. There have been calls for investigations. And today we have some response. There was a confrontation between Senator Cornyn and Attorney General Holder. And Holder himself is now calling these contempt charges against him an impending constitutional crisis. Take a look at the story. You can see exactly how he explains himself, and you can see that the stage is set here now for something that is going to be very serious, if not historic, on what goes on in Washington on this front. Our story to boost takes us back to Providence, where they held the Netroots convention over the weekend. We deployed 3 Blaze reporters to Providence, and they were, even though they weren't officially even allowed in, I will tell you, to the Netroots conference, because the Blaze isn't a news site, according to the leftists. We managed to turn on a good number of stories anyway. And the one we have up today is a top left media guru at this event explaining that economic growth, he likens it to cancer. I'm not making this up. He says the actual goal of the economy should be happiness. Now, I would have gone along with him if he had said the pursuit of happiness, but you'll see in his comments that he's not talking about anything like pursuit. He's talking about what the government can guarantee and engineer to individual citizens. Much different story. That's a look at the Blaze right now. Amy?
Thanks a lot, Scott. We appreciate it. Are they more Tea Party or Occupy? Thousands took to the streets of Moscow today to protest the seemingly endless rule of Vladimir Putin. But will they see results? Stay with us.
Thinking of buying window blinds from a jack of all trades?
Take a right at the garden gnomes, then a left at the squirrel feeders. You'll see some store maps. That should guide you to where the blinds are located.
At Blinds.com, all we do is blinds. Our experts help from selection to installation, and for a lot less than retail. For a limited time, use code GBTV for an additional 10% off already discounted prices. Blinds.com.
MyPatriotSupply.com presents LifeStraw. With LifeStraw, you can immediately and safely drink water like this and like this. LifeStraw is the ultra-lightweight personal water purifier that has been turning heads and saving lives since 2005. With a patented set of filters, you can drink directly from contaminated floodwaters and from ponds, lakes, and streams anywhere in the world without worry. Get LifeStraw now at MyPatriotSupply.com. Clean water from virtually any source on sale today at MyPatriotSupply.com.
Okay, so has anybody actually started saving for college yet?
Oh, not me.
No, you got time.
Oh, no, we actually started.
You have?
Really?
Sure. We figure you start saving a little now, or you'll borrow a lot later on.
Yeah, but how did you even know where to start? Oh, I found out about the Gerber Life College Plan.
Call now for free information on the Gerber Life College Plan. It's easy.
It's pretty much worry-free.
Well, how could it be worry-free? What if something happens with the stock market?
No matter what happens, we get guaranteed safe growth.
So when she's ready for college, the money will be there.
And it doesn't take a lot of money to get started.
For as little as $10 a week, you can start saving for college and get guaranteed growth. Just call now.
Oh, it's a life insurance policy, too.
Oh, that's different.
And if she decides not to go to college, there's no penalty, so she can use the money for anything.
We've got to get started.
Yes, we do, because you're going to college.
Call 1-800-892-3073 for your free information. That's 1-800-892-3073.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
It was 25 years ago today that Ronald Reagan uttered those famous words at the Brandenburg Gate in Germany. And while the Soviet Union collapsed in the ensuing years, you might not be able to tell from the looks of things these days. Earlier today, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets of Moscow to protest the authoritarian policies of Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. Organizers of the recent demonstrations have found themselves increasingly embattled lately as the Russian regime cracks down on the opposition. So, Essie, what's happening? He was only just inaugurated.
Yeah, and almost since that day, Russians have been pouring into the streets. The numbers vary. The cops there say only 18,000 people. The protesters themselves say probably more like 100,000. In what they're calling this March of Millions. And from a Western perspective, it's kind of hard to tell what's really going on here. It's hard to see if this is more of sort of an Occupy kind of movement, or frankly, if this is something that could turn into Syria. I mean, it's really, it really is hard to tell. News sources are very untrustworthy. As you mentioned, Putin's been really cracking down on the protesters, invoking these really draconian anti-protest laws, coming into people's homes. I mean, it's ugly stuff. And I want to get right to our guest. His name is Yuri Maltsev, and he is a professor of economics at Carthage College and was an economist for Mikhail Gorbachev. Because, you know, he can certainly give us more answers on this. And Yuri, thanks for joining us. I want to start. Tell us who these people are. I know that there are some leaders, quote-unquote leaders, this reality star, Ksenia Sobchak, blogger Sergei Udaltsov. There are a couple faces of this movement, but really representing disparate kinds of interests. Break this down for us.
Yes, it's a very mixed group of people. Everybody from extreme left to extreme right, and everybody in the middle as well. Say people like Ksenia Sobchak. She is a daughter of the famous reformer and mayor of St. Petersburg, Anatoly Sobchak, who actually renamed Leningrad back into St. Petersburg. He was an anti-communist, and she is as well. Then, from another hand, if you will go to Sergei Udaltsov, for example, I knew his uncle very well. I was in university with him. And he is ultra-left. He is a grandson of the famous Bolshevik. And he believes in communism, kind of unreformed communism. In 2006, he was running for Russian parliament, for Duma, on the Stalinist bloc ticket. You can imagine, Stalin who murdered anywhere from 40 to 60 million people over there. Now still people like Udaltsov is trying to make him popular. And there are also some free market reformers like Boris Nemtsov. So it's a mixed bag. It's right. Kind of like Tea Party and occupiers all together.
Well, and let me ask, is this a movement that is specific to Putin, or is it really sort of opposing the idea of, you know, another oligarchy, because Putin is now in the midst of what's essentially his third six-year term in some capacity? What is it? What is the goal? Is it to get Putin out, or is it to just sort of change politics as usual in Russia?
Yes, I would say that it is kind of a mass protest against politics as usual, because Russia is one of the countries in that part of the world which didn't succeed in anti-socialist revolution. All other countries like, I don't know, Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Czech Republic, they all are free right now, free market countries. Russia is not. In Russia, control was seized by the KGB again. KGB, it's called FSB, SVR. It's kind of an alphabet soup of all kinds of organs of government repression. And Russian people, I would say, in the free elections of the year 2000, this year's elections were not free already. Mr. Putin probably rigged a lot of this. But in the year 2000, I think Russians made a huge mistake to elect a colonel of the KGB, and proud colonel of KGB, Stalinist Putin, as the president. Definitely he will never quit. He cannot quit because I think he would be tried, if not killed.
Wow, so where do you think this goes? I mean, is it alarmist or an exaggeration to say that this could end up looking like Syria, or do you think this stays pretty much on the streets and nonviolent?
I would say that depends on Mr. Putin. Because Mr. Putin definitely, he doesn't care about violence, and he knows how to apply it. And if needed, I think he would begin to kill people, because he is unreformed Stalinist. For him, these people are either he blames everybody as being American agents, that it's all CIA. It's the same rhetoric that was heard in Moscow 30 years ago, 50, 70 years ago. So that can go, I would say, anywhere, especially with a leader like Mr. Putin. Life expectancy around him drops like a rock. Wow. And so that's why I think that he's pretty dangerous kind of guy.
Well, I want to ask you, what does your former boss, Mikhail Gorbachev, think about Putin and these developments? I had a chance once to meet Mr. Gorbachev, very charming man, but even more importantly, he initiated perestroika. Does he see Russia as actually regressing pre-perestroika, you said, to policies that are 30, 40, 50 years old?
Well, with Mr. Gorbachev, he is also kind of mixed news in the sense that he was a reformed communist. That's how he would characterize himself. For me, reformed communist is kind of like a reformed Nazi. I mean, that doesn't look good. Mr. Gorbachev, however, he had this love-hate relationship with Mr. Putin. In the very beginning, he was very supportive of Mr. Putin. He wrote several articles for Wall Street Journal, even here, praising Mr. Putin as a reformer. Now I think that maybe he became older and wiser or whatnot. Now he is trying at least to kind of distance himself from the Putin's regime. And he definitely is right about it, because Mr. Putin is hated by most Russians.
Yuri, I wanted to ask you that. That's actually perfect. I'm curious about this. Who does Vladimir Putin turn to for his support? We see this, there's opposition on the streets, there are now tens of thousands of protesters marching, but clearly Putin, outside of just the sort of apparatus, the security apparatus of the state, must have people that voted for him and that would continue to vote for him, that are on his side. Could you just sort of sketch out who would fall into that side of this battle?
Yes. Well, Mr. Putin's support comes from nationalists. When Soviet Union collapsed, can you imagine the whole ideology, the whole socialist idea collapsed overnight. And so there was a huge vacuum. And to fill the void, people like Putin began to play the nationalist card. And so a lot of nationalists, they are around Mr. Putin. It's kind of, I would say, mild neo-fascist kind of ideology, that Russians are better than others, that Russian Orthodox Church is better than any other church. No, like that. So Mr. Putin is definitely supported by a lot of, I would say, blue-collar workers. Having said that elections in some places were rigged, I would say that he is popular enough to win elections because under Putin, Russians live better from economics point of view. It's just amazing that it's not his. It's definitely it's not because of him. It's because of the price for oil is going up. It's because the other natural resources are in huge demand, and it's because the government is at least less idiotic than it was under Soviet Union. So Putin's Russia definitely is not a nice place to be. I kind of make a joke. Russia is a great place to be from, and from I would say that perspective. I think that many Russians would attribute these successes in their personal lives to Mr. Putin.
Yuri, let me ask you, I want to bring this back to the U.S. for a minute, because I know you've talked about this too, whether it was the infamous reset incident or President Obama telling Medvedev, I'll have more flexibility when I get reelected. How do you feel the Obama administration has handled Russia so far?
I think it's just awful. This policy is a policy of consistent betrayal of our true friends, like Eastern Europeans, playing everything into Putin's favor. Amazingly enough, that Putin does not even repay this favor. He needs us as enemies. He doesn't need us as friends, just for his domestic standing. But Obama administration is, I think, when this talk with Mr. Medvedev in Korea was just amazing, and it looks like the president was on the take of KGB. He was just like reporting to a handler.
You know, guys, I think it's interesting something Yuri's saying. As we look around the world at the various rebellions that are going on, the street uprisings in the streets, it doesn't seem to be a necessity, whether or not we look at Syria or Egypt or Tunisia, to have an ideological consistency among the rebels, among those that are rebelling against some kind of power. So that's not a problem for this movement in Russia affecting some kind of potential change. But what is a problem, my guess would be, what is an essential necessity of any kind of reform agent in any of these countries is economic unrest. And Yuri points out that people in Russia see their country and their life as better than before Putin. And if that's the case, he'll always have popular support behind him, or some tenuous grasp of popular support, meaning this might be pessimistic to see this is really effectuating.
There's a Russian middle class now, and there was not before. There have been lots of people who, as he points out, because of the revenues, Russia is the first or second exporter of oil in the world after Saudi Arabia, depending on how you gauge it. It provides half of the natural gas into the EU, and these are huge revenue streams going into the country, and that actually has raised a lot of people up economically. So that's why I want to ask about the support, because he's not Assad. This is the key issue. He's not an embattled dictator.
There are people that are,
there are people.
Is that fair, Yuri? Is it fair to say that this is kind of, we should look somewhat pessimistically at these rebellions?
Well, there is a Russian saying that pessimist is just a better informed optimist, in the sense that, yes, I don't see them going anywhere, because the people within this rebellion, they are so different between each other. People like Boris Nemtsov, who is on the side of economic and political freedom, or people like Sergei Udaltsov, who is unreformed Stalinist. And definitely they know only what they're against. They don't have anything in common to fight for. So from that point of view, I think that the position is very much divided. And for Mr. Putin, it would be, with all his KGB experience, it would not be very difficult to kind of weed out the most visible figures and punish them pretty harshly. And so everybody would learn the lesson. So I would say that he would probably crack down even harder. They just passed a new law, which he signed as his first act as a president, the new law which imposes $9,000 fines for participation in this kind of street demonstration. $9,000, that would be annual salary of an average Russian. So then up to 15 years of imprisonment. So this is pretty hard on Russians.
Very difficult. Yuri, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Nice
to be with you.
The Island of Misfit Stories is up next. Stick around.
People are talking. Join the conversation. Like GBTV and Glenn on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. Let your voice be heard.
The Island of Misfits stories is always a mix of important and outrageous stories. The first headline up tonight includes both of those elements. Will Kane.
Yeah, you know, guys, we've talked about some of the different atrocities taking place in Syria. You hear stories about 100 civilians murdered, 49 kids murdered among those 100 civilians. And something I've always asked myself is, who actually carries out these atrocities? Who does Assad, assuming this is Assad, who actually pulls the trigger on a kid? Who does this for him? Well, the answer we might have. These guys are called ghost killers. They're thugs pumped up on steroids who have tattoos of Assad all over their body, and supposedly they are roaming the nation, massacring women and children by slitting their throats and shooting them at point-blank range. These guys have AK-47s and machetes. They're called the Shabiha, which translates into the ghosts. They wear combat trousers and black T-shirts. And this is a quote from a source in this story, that their mission is to terrorize the civilian population and conduct ethnic cleansing. It's just kind of interesting to put a face or an illustration or an example of who actually is the guy who commits these atrocities.
Oh, monstrous. Terrible. Matt, sorry, it's your job to go after that.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. Well, so speaking of foreigners, a lot of foreigners have been coming to the United States, actually propping up and putting a bit of a bottom under our housing market. We've seen from last year to this year a 24% increase in the amount of money being spent on real estate here in the United States by foreign buyers. Over half of those buyers are coming from only 5 countries, which I found kind of surprising. Canada, which I can kind of see that, I guess. China, of course, a lot of money in China. Mexico, India, and the UK. So I can see China, I can see Mexico kind of, I can see India. But it's kind of, you know, people are leaving the UK maybe because the issues going on in the EU, even though they're not in the EU. But this may be good news. Even though some people may say, you know, we don't want foreigners coming in, buying up our homes, et cetera. This will put a bottom, because what happens is Americans are still scared of buying homes. They do not want to get out there. Foreigners view that in a different light because they do not live here. They view this as opportunity right now in the U.S. to get in at low prices. So this may be typically the first step of the turnaround in the housing market.
I think it's Warren Buffett actually that put a suggestion out there that you offer a green card to anybody from outside the country that wants to buy a home over $300,000 in value or something like that, showing that these foreigners can help our housing market find its bottom.
62% of the purchases, or 62%, yeah, of the buyers have paid cash. So it's not people coming in and taking mortgages. People have money.
A lot of this is at the super high end too. These are very
sure, the Russian billionaire spent 88.
Yeah, the Russians who are talking about
in Manhattan. Yeah.
Interesting. Buck Sexton.
Where is Middleborough, Massachusetts?
I think it's Western Mass.
Anyway,
it's
a little town.
Because I'm from Northern Mass and I've never heard of it.
It's a little town, SE, and it's doing some interesting things. That's all I know. And you should pay attention, potty mouth. They are banning.
Heard of this?
They are banning curse words. You can get a $20 fine. $20 fine. $20 fine for swearing in public. One of the police chief there in this quaint Massachusetts town, he said, I don't see an issue. We have a lot of things to do. This is not a priority. And you're not going to be fined for swearing at a sporting event, for example, or the other tried and true American pastimes that involve vulgarity. But if you're a young kid screaming in the street, curse words, you might get a fine. I will also throw out there that at this town meeting on Monday night, in this quiet corner of Massachusetts, they decriminalized drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana in public. So it's sort of like some nanny state whiplash here. On the one hand, they're banning cursing, and on the other hand, they're saying, but smoke a little weed and drink a little booze in public.
I hope that
Massachusetts, fascinating. I spent 4 years there.
I hope Middleborough has a good legal budget built up, because I can tell you right now that goes to the Supreme Court, that fails.
Okay, potty mouth.
we can cuss
we know it. Will, have you already written your amicus brief? Anyway.
Okay, SC, what do you got?
Well, I'm sure everyone's heard of, if not been to, a gun show. But do you know there are also knife shows? Yes, there are. And I went to one this weekend. It's the big one. It's the Blade Show.
Of course, the big one.
And I was actually a keynote speaker talking about knife rights at their awards breakfast. Yeah, I'm big into the knife community. You don't know this, but it's true. I am. I own many knives, now many more because I got really hooked up. But I brought back some photos of my trip to the knife show. That's swords, naturally. They're sort of, there's this guy who carves Confederate scenes into knife handles. Then there's this. It's a gel mask because I don't know why. Then there was this. There's a big prepper sort of survivalist contingent that goes to these, and that was some processed cheese that I had. This was a martial arts expert who was showing me some kind of energy situation where he could make me
balancing your
sit down. He could make me sit down on the chair by just touching my forehead. And then, of course, there is the haul I came home with. That's a couple K-bars. There's a CRKT in there, a Ken Onion knife.
Spyderco.
There's a Benchmark. There's a Spyderco knife.
Looks like there's a cheese peeler.
My buck is in there. That scraper is actually a tactical. It's a tactical scraper. Don't ask.
For your windshield?
What do you do with it? Tactical, like strategic, is a word that makes anything sound cooler. This is my tactical windbreaker.
I think I now have upwards of 20, 25, 30 knives.
High five, huh?
Wow.
And I want to thank all my friends at the Blade Show for showing me such a great time and hooking me up with so much great stuff. I am completely outfitted in knives.
I've met some guys who are knife community guys, and it is like they're very serious about it. It's like a lifestyle. They're very serious.
Well, they are, and actually, I mean, the knife issue. They call it the second front of the Second Amendment because, I've talked about it here before, and I've written about it extensively. That cities like New York, they're not just coming after your guns. Cy Vance Jr., the district attorney in Manhattan, banned most of my knives that you saw
Boston
there.
Too is trying
Boston
to ban
to New Hampshire, and kniferights.org, which is the organization that brought me down there, is actually really the only front working against those efforts around the country. So check them out, become a kniferights.org member. And I'd also like to give a quick shout out to my friend Jesse Kelly, who is running tonight in Arizona's Congressional District 8 special election.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have, but we'll be back with more real news tomorrow night. Until then, have a good one.